We have two interesting announcements, one from Hyundai and another from Mercedes. Many auto experts believe that of the traditional automakers, it's Hyundai that is next to Tesla in the race to electric vehicles. Well, Hyundai just announced they'll be starting production of an affordable electric version of their Casper mini SUV in Europe later this year. Priced at only 20,000 euros, this might turn out to be a very big deal. Mercedes, on the other hand, just launched a new e-Sprinter electric van in the US. Starts at $72,000 and 273 miles of range. This competes with the other electric vans like Ford e-Transit in the US. Would be awesome once Tesla gets in the game. So we've got Hans Nelson joining us. He has his own YouTube channel, which you check out at Hans C. Nelson. Uh, Building that out pretty nicely with all these interviews you're doing too, Hans. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
Love it when you join me every week. You bring a good perspective in terms typically on software, AI, the Dojo supercomputers, on these other things. So Let's talk about Hyundai. Hyundai is apparently looking to start production of an electric version of the Casper, which is their mini SUV, in July. It's coming very very soon, and it's going to debut. You know, its production really soon. And $20,000, 20,000 euros for the European market. This is what it looks like. Very small, very affordable. Nothing. It's like a mini. It's a mini little SUV, and so it looks like it's right now. This is only available in South Korea as a gas vehicle, but they're going to start making that an electric vehicle, an EV version of the compact vehicle in Europe Q3. And then it looks like it's going to be, will include a more affordable LFP battery featuring a range of about 125 to 187 miles. And then it's going to be priced 20,000 euros, like we said. It's going to undercut the automaker's current most affordable offering, the Kona, which is priced at 36,400 euros in the German market. So they already have a car there. Uh, what's your thoughts on that?
So I think it's interesting for them to actually be trying to offer this model that's basically a converted ICE vehicle. We see that typically the vehicles that really do well are not converted gas vehicles, but they're ground up EV designs. And so, for Hyundai, who has already built some ground up EVs, to be going back in this direction is an interesting move. But I think it does make some amount of sense when you take into account the fact that this is such a low price point vehicle, that I think that they're trying to dip their toes in the water with a platform that they have a supply chain built out for already and some existing manufacturing infrastructure. And so it's interesting that that's the path that they have decided to make or to go down. Um, we don't really have too many vehicles that are down at this price point. 20,000 euros is roughly equivalent to $20,000. Um, and the European market, obviously, this is going to be a vehicle that is a much better fit for that market just based on the size, that it's not large enough to really probably get much traction here in the United States. Um, but it's cool to see EVs actually being offered at these prices. And this is another unit that really adds some credence to the charts that we've already looked at this year of the average prices of gas vehicles and then where EV offerings are coming in compared to that, and showing that EVs really are able to be offered at existing MSRPs for gas vehicles in the European and Chinese markets already, and then getting very close to reaching that point here in the United States. So this is a data point that supports that we see in Europe. Um, and hopefully at these low prices, we can see makers create vehicles that are compelling. They have good range. The fact that they have this LFP battery pack is a good thing. That means that this should be a much more scalable offering, that they can produce more units, which is going to be critical if they plan to be able to make any money off of this. When you get down into these types of price points, one of the things that is you really need those economies of scale in order to recoup the investment that it takes to set up the manufacturing lines. And so I think that's why we see them making some of the decisions that they're making, and I just hope that all of this ends up working well for Hyundai so that they can continue to advance in their transition over to more EVs.
Yeah, of course. But I think they're making all the right moves. I think when I interviewed Monroe and Associates, Corey Steuben, when he was there, he was saying that Hyundai, for him, is second in line to Tesla. They seem to be doing fairly well. So here's their, attack in Europe. And then you wanted to bring up this as well, this point here that in May 2023, they announced that Hyundai and LG are going to build a $4.3 billion EV battery plant in the US. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I think that this move in Europe is just a precursor to something that they're probably setting up for here in the United States. They're trying to just build out their portfolio of EV vehicles, and even though this new, what was the name of the actual
Oh, Casper?
model, the Casper? Yeah,
Yeah.
um, even though this Casper is not necessarily a good fit for the United States, they do have access to the US market. Obviously, we buy Hyundais here all the time. And so when they are ready, they can bring any vehicle that they feel like is a good fit for the US market here. And with this announcement of this battery plant, they will be able to actually take advantage of the IRA. And so while we know that companies like BYD and Xiaopeng are excellent EV companies and they make good EV offerings that a lot of people think are going to be highly, highly competitive to existing auto manufacturers, we do see that those are probably going to have a hard time getting access to markets as easily as somebody like Hyundai, who already has an existing footprint both in Europe but here in the United States. And those are going to be harder places for China to do business. And so Hyundai does have kind of a leg up on companies like BYD and China from that perspective. And then when you combine that, like I said, with the battery plant that they are setting up in Georgia with LG, being able to take advantage of the IRA tax credits here in the United States will not only allow them to have access to the market, but access to pricing that is going to be much lower and a higher value proposition for those vehicles, which should make them probably much more successful here in the United States.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. But on the other hand, Hyundai is probably not going to do very well in China with this low-end car Casper, because obviously China has so many options there. So they're trying
Hmm.
to, like you said, go where China is not going. So I think there's some interesting things here. The other thing, just to round up this story, is that Hyundai in November invested $1.5 billion, dollars, or they're going to be, to build a new EV manufacturing plant in South Korea, and so this is just their dedication to, an EV dedicated plant. So this is something that, again, they're all in. They're making this happen. And then down here you can see that it's they're going to invest $1.53 billion. Dollars. It's planning to produce 200,000 electric vehicles annually in the EV plant, and it'll begin construction this quarter. Plans to start mass production by Q1 2026. That number, 200,000 vehicles, I've heard many say that that's kind of like that number. Like if you can start producing a vehicle at that rate, then that's when you start to get to scale and be able to take advantage of prices and get into profitability, right? So, any last thoughts on Hyundai before we get to Mercedes?
The only other observation I would make on that is because the Casper is, built on a platform that they already have as a gas vehicle, I would doubt that the Casper is going to be manufactured in that new plant. That new plant is probably something that is being spooled up for future initiatives and ground up designed EVs, much more so than this small vehicle that they're looking to roll out there in Europe.
Good, good. All right, so let's talk about Mercedes. This is very fun. They've got a new van called the Sprinter van, and it's launched now. It's here available now in the US. And so this is what it looks like. I'm going to play a video of this. I do like these vans, and they got such a big role to play, and I'm glad that they're in it. Ford's in it. We hope Tesla will get in it. So basically, it's a $72,000 electric van, 273 miles of range. They're using the LFP batteries, now available at dealerships. So let's go ahead and play the video, and then we'll get your thoughts on this.
Our goal is to drive from Las Vegas to Long Beach, California in one single charge without any stops. such a big van and it feels like a car to drive. It's really easy to handle. So I'm confident that we'll make it.
Mhm.
So we've reached Long Beach, 275 miles. This is really awesome. I'm really happy about it. And I'm more confident than ever about the abilities of the e-Sprinter. It's a really amazing product.
Not bad, eh? 5 hours? Yeah, good. 273, that's like a normal like my Model 3 can do that, much more. But, what do you think?
Yeah, so with these vehicles, most of the time, there's kind of a mixture of use cases. There are going to be many, many use cases that don't have to travel super long distances in a day. They have a circuit, their work vans that are going around town, or maybe they do have a little circuit that they're traveling, but it's not necessarily all that long. Um, and so the weight capacity of what they can haul is going to be important, and the functionality of the vehicle is going to be very important. And the Sprinter is an incredible van as far as its usability in a work setting. That obviously them and Ford also, makes the transit vans that do very well in the segment. It's a very large automotive segment, maybe not as large as say pickup trucks or the most common sedans. But behind those, it's actually a pretty sizable market. And so it's great to see just further developments in the electrification of the segment, that now Mercedes will go head to head with Ford, against the e-Transit with this e-Sprinter. And, I know a lot of people really prefer the Sprinter vans to the Ford vans. And so this is going to be increased competition for Ford in this space, but just good news for the overall EV transition.
Okay, we'll talk about, Tesla's, plans for this. We'll have that conversation shortly, but, this is just, the introduction to the e-Sprinter. So as we said already, it's gonna have 273 miles. It's got 488 cubic feet of cargo capacity. It looks pretty big. Looks fantastic. It's got this MBUX, Mercedes-Benz user experience, and it's got the LFP battery pack. So apparently they're putting a focus on the in-car technology, so you can have this cloud-based services, Me Connect digital ecosystem. So you can just go, "Hey Mercedes," and you'll be able to do a variety of tasks for it to do. Ask for a new route to a destination, look for the nearest charging location. Um, Maybe that's all they can actually do. Those two things, not like the Tesla, you can control all sorts of things. eSprinter all comes equipped with various intelligence, safety, and assistance. So active brake assist, blind spot assist, attention assist. There's 85,000 public charging points. So this is using the ChargePoint, Electrify America, and EVgo. Any comments on this?
Yeah, I would assume that this is just for now, that they are using those charging networks, because we have seen that Mercedes is partnering with Tesla to be able to offer support for NACS. But we know that most of that is really looking to ramp up in 2025 is when they'll come with the NACS connectors standard and support the NACS system out of the box. So hopefully, that's just a matter of time, because that would definitely make these vehicles a lot more compelling. If anyone who's using these for a work setting who's going to rely on those networks today, that's definitely a drawback that makes these much harder to use. But the benefit with the LFP pack is that you do have that full access to 100% of the charging capacity of the battery. And LFP is a great choice also for work vehicles, because the cycle life on an LFP battery is going to be better than on the nickel based batteries. And so while it does mean that they have a little bit smaller range overall, it's a much better fit for a work vehicle like this. And like we said, hopefully the access to charging will be sufficient for their initial wave of deliveries. And like I said, I'm confident that as they deliver more of these vehicles into 2025, they'll support NACS, and then that will just be a much better experience for everyone involved.
Okay, and then the price, as we said, is $72,000. You can lease it for as low as almost $1,000 for 36 months. That seems very reasonable. Okay, so Dave Lee says this: not cool seeing Mercedes release an electric Sprinter van before Tesla does. It's 2024. Come on, Tesla, release the beast, Tesla van. Some people think that they, the Cybertruck needs to scale first before they release the Tesla van. We know that the Tesla van was kind of hidden. We saw this cloak when they were talking about the next vehicle. So a cyber van seems like it's next. What's your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I'll just take the steel man of the opposing side argument for Dave on this one specifically. I think it's really good that we actually see other manufacturers pursuing these market segments that, let's be honest, are not necessarily the most important point to move technology forward for the overall transition to EVs for Tesla. That the next gen vehicle platform is a much larger platform. It's going to have a much larger impact on the overall transition to EVs than a van will. Even though a van is an important vehicle, it is an important market segment. It is something that needs to happen. It doesn't necessarily need to be at the top of Tesla's focus right here at this point in time. And the fact that Ford has been in this market now for a little while. Like, there's already options here. So because we've already got these existing offerings in the marketplace, we can see that Tesla's mission really is working. That they are accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy in EVs, even in the van segment, without necessarily entering into that segment, which is on mission. That's really what we want, and we want other vehicle manufacturers to be able to have products that can be their ramp to be able to offer more and higher quality EVs as well. Like, we do need to leave some room for other manufacturers to have profitable vehicles and profitable vehicle platforms so that they can build a sustainable business model within their own company. And so it doesn't hurt my feelings. Would I love a Tesla van? Well, obviously. And I think this is going to be one that hits especially close to home for Dave himself, since he does drive. He's got an RV, and so van life is something that he's accustomed to. And when you drive a Tesla and then you go and you have to drive this non-Tesla van, that's going to be something that is frustrating. And so for Tesla owners who really wish that they had access to a Tesla offering in that vehicle category, I 100% empathize with the frustration of that. But I think if you step back from an overall mission perspective, that it's perfectly fine for Tesla not to be right here, right now.
Yeah. Do you think that Tesla's van will be much better than what you saw here in terms of the range, prices, other features that might be
Ye-
differentiator?
I think that when Tesla enters this marketplace, they will be dramatically better than the alternatives in price specifically. This is just my personal speculation, but I think that the next generation vehicle platform is
Hmm.
going to be the platform for the Tesla van. I don't think it's going to be built with the angular stainless steel
Hmm.
exoskeleton of the Cybertruck. I think that it's going to be a little bit more
Hmm.
traditional, but it's not going to be painted. And based on the vehicle manufacturing technology that they use to make it, and the fact that it will also be offered with an LFP battery pack, I think that Tesla's going to be able to make a van that has basically equivalent specs and performance to an e-transit or this e-sprinter, but they're going to be able to offer it for a much lower price. And
Interesting you
once
said
that
that.
thing
Yeah.
gets ramped up, it's going to be, a very significant thing.
Hmm. Okay. Well, in their roadmap, they showed that in undercovers, the cyber van looked like a van was under the cyber truck, so people assume that it's going to be a cyber
But if you look
production
at
line.
the shape of the
Hmm.
covering that was over it, it looked like
Hmm.
it had rounded corners. It didn't look like it was
Mm.
all those hard edges on it.
I
And
see. Yeah.
to me, it doesn't make sense if you. Right now, we know that they're focusing on the compact. Once you release that compact and you are
Hmm.
using
Hmm.
the unboxed
The box
method
model.
to
Yeah.
produce vehicles, then
Hmm.
you don't ever want to go back. And I don't know, like, obviously they could produce with the stainless steel panels on the outside that are that hard. But one of
Hmm.
the things that we heard Franz say specifically is that we would have to think very long and hard if we ever were going to use the basically bulletproof stainless steel on the outside of a vehicle again, because that choice was driven by the necessity of the toughness of a truck. And so they wanted to
I
have the
see.
toughness of the truck and they wanted it to be
Yeah.
on the outside. A van, there's some benefits to
Hmm.
having it be tough, but if you can get like 50% as tough as the truck on the
Hmm.
outside, and then you don't have, like, if you can use a thinner stainless steel that's not necessarily bulletproof, that is formable, because we know that, on the Cybertruck,
Hmm.
the inners of the doors are also stainless steel, and those are formed with those complex curves. Um, and it's only the thickness of those exterior panels that makes them so hard to work with. And so I think they're going to abandon that angular cyber
Hmm.
look for future. And so I think it's very possible that we could see a Tesla van that is stainless steel exterior and therefore not painted, but not in the Cybertruck style. It will have a more
Yeah.
traditional shape. It'll be much more aerodynamic because they're able to use curves on it as well. And then, like we said, using the unbox method, it will be much cheaper to produce to
Hmm.
begin with.
Interesting. So you just shared a few ideas there that made me open up my eyes and start thinking about this more. Appreciate all this. Thank you so much, Hans. Follow him on his YouTube channel, Hans C. Nelson. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.